Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we're going to be doing a Bernie Clark sequence. So if you know and love Yin Yoga, Bernie Clark has written an amazing book all about Yin Yoga. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. It's a great book to have on hand at home if you like to do a Yin practice at home. This specific sequence is the first one listed in his book, and it's called an Easy Beginner's Flow with 3-minute holds. If you are really new to yoga, then I'll just give you a couple little pointers to get started. I like to have blankets and cushions, lots of them actually. I have 3 right beside me, and I have several more within reach. So if you don't have things like that, don't worry about it. The other thing I like to have are some yoga blocks. Again, it's a nice to have, not a need to have. Pillows and cushions will, for the most part, do the trick of blocks as well. The other thing I like to mention is if you are brand new to yoga, you may just wish to watch this video in its entirety first. That way you'll know what to expect and see where we use the props and go, oh yeah, okay, I have some of those things around the house, or I know what could work, that kind of a thing. Let's just go ahead and get started. Heading into our opening meditation, readjusting here. Sometimes I like to do a little bit of a hike up of the pants and a rearrangement of the shirt. And we're starting in a nice cross-legged seated position, or if that position is not comfortable for you, any seated position that's comfortable. Sometimes it's nice to be up on a blanket just to lift the hips a little bit higher than the knees, especially if you're tighter in the hips. Whenever you're ready, lifting up nice and tall. And let's place the palms onto the knees and close the eyes. Taking those first few moments to get settled. The main goal of sitting quietly and closing the eyes before we get started in yoga is to create a clear delineation between whatever we were doing before our yoga practice and our yoga practice. It lets our body know that we're about to do something really good for us, something really awesome. And then, speaking of something really good for us, picking an intention for your practice today. So if you're new to yoga, you might think, well, what? I don't even know what that is. There's a lot of benefits to yoga. So just picking one of them. You may not even know all of the benefits of yoga yet, but some of them are flexibility and other things too, like inner peace, inner strength. So just picking one for today and really holding on to that thought for a moment. From here, take 3 slow, deep breaths through the nose. In yoga, we always breathe through the nose unless otherwise indicated. Really big, expansive breaths. It doesn't have to be audible. This nice, steady stream of oxygen to the muscles. That's already about 2. And 3. Taking a moment to let all that oxygen just resonate within the body. Still thinking about our intention for our practice, letting that settle in as well. And see if you can lengthen through the spine just a little bit more our last few moments here. See if you can feel almost weightless. Notice if your body is completely perpendicular to the earth. If not, you might be leaning forward. And if you are leaning forward, it's difficult to see with your eyes closed, but you might notice your back muscles working a bit much. So if you lean back until you're completely perpendicular, you'll start to feel weightless. If, on the other hand, you're curving and rounding and it's a struggle to stay forward, you might feel your core engaging, which at some points in yoga is a good thing. But for this moment, we want to have the belly actually relaxed a little bit as we lift up tall. Let's just take one more inhale here. And an exhale. And slowly open the eyes. And it always feels much calmer and nicer after we do our opening meditation. But we'll head into our first stretch of this sequence, which is butterfly. So bring the soles of the feet together and draw them in towards the body as close as they'll go. If your body's like, oh, it's not happening, your knees maybe are speaking to you, feel free to keep those feet further apart. So butterfly can be anywhere with the feet. I like to have them in close. You might prefer not to. If you're finding that the closer in your heels go to the body, the more you lean back, that's where we would want to employ a blanket or two. Once you found your position, take an inhale, lifting up tall. As long as everything feels okay on the exhale, start to move the heart forward, and we'll get our timer started. So if you've been doing yoga a long time and you know what you're doing, just close the eyes and soften in those spaces that feel the stretch. If you're brand new to yoga and you're just not comfortable in this position, a couple things we can try. So if it's the knees, you can try either elevating the hips up onto a blanket or two, and that works if the hips are really tight as well. If it's a struggle to stay upright, elevating the hips is usually all that's needed to relieve that completely. If you're already elevated and you are upright and it's totally easy for you, but the knees are still speaking to you, one of two things you can do. You can bring the feet forward to make more of a diamond shape, or you can support the knee or knees on blocks. That will often alleviate both the hips and the knees. So this is why it's nice to have props. If you don't have blocks, use a cushion or a blanket, fold it up. So this is a trial and error kind of a thing. Every body is different. That's why in-person classes are really nice, because your teacher's walking around helping you, bringing you props and bringing you blankets and all sorts of things that are wonderful to help your practice. But at home, it's important that we take the time to get ourselves situated. So having a stack of blankets and props handy is a good thing. This is not one of those situations where you want to grin and bear it. If something's not feeling quite right, you're not able to relax completely. Once you're able to relax completely, close the eyes and soften into those spaces that feel the stretch. Slow down the breathing. And all we have to think about is softening and relaxing and slowing down the breathing. Taking a moment to check in, be sure we are softening in those spaces. If you do notice yourself tightening against the stretch, you might need to come out a bit more. One of the tricks to getting flexible faster is to not fight against it. But if you're in the stretch too far and you're relaxing, you may overstretch something, strain something, and then you've lost that ability to be more flexible in the first place. So mild stretch and then soften, okay? Last deep breath here. And slowly, slowly start to come out. You can get rid of your blocks and things, and then extend the legs forward just to give them a little knee tap, or shake the legs out a little bit. From here, we'll do a nice counter stretch. So leaning back onto the hands, bend the knees with the feet wider than hips width apart. We'll do windshield wipers. So allow one knee to move down towards the floor, and we're trying to not stretch the knee, but really target the hip. flipping sides. Maybe you are lucky enough to get your hip to crack like I just did. So you can notice that this is happening right in the hip. So my entire thigh bone is internally rotating right in the hip socket. I'm not feeling my knee at all because my whole leg is now pointing that way, not just the knee. It's all turned inward. And then again, first side. If there's any pain in the knee at all, you need to back out a bit. It means that your hip is saying, I don't want to move. And your knee is like, all right, fine, I'll move. Maybe your legs don't actually speak out loud to you like that, but that's essentially what's happening. So we really want to think and target the upper leg to move within the hip socket. And again, for the second side, I had a 50-50 chance, second side. You might even notice one side is a little more cooperative than the other, and that's okay. Don't worry too much about it. Things even up over time. Coming out of our windshield wipers, we'll head into our next stretch, which is called straddles. We're doing a couple different straddles here. For this one, I do like to turn sideways on my mat, and then I have to shuffle my things around. Get my blocks out of the way here. For straddle, you can still be up on a blanket or a cushion, and then step the feet apart as far as they'll go. So from here, lifting up nice and tall, and if lifting up nice and tall isn't an option, then sitting up on a cushion or blanket. From here, we'll turn to face the right leg. So I'm going to mirror you. So I'm going this way. So we're all going this way. I'm going to bring our timer here. And actually, this is what blocks are really good for. We'll be leaning over the right leg. So turning to face that right leg and then folding forward. This is where it's nice to use the blocks to allow yourself to be lazy, like that, which looks kind of funny, but it's absolutely the truth. We want to be lazy in this posture, right? And maybe you need another blanket, or like a blanket or a block or something. Or maybe you don't need them at all. Wherever you're at, feeling a stretch in that right leg, closing the eyes, and hold. Trying to soften. It's not super urgent or important to lengthen and lift. We don't want that kind of yang-like quality. There's yin and there's yang. And yang is more of like a strong, or as Bernie Clark calls it, yang, strength. We don't necessarily need that in yin. In fact, we don't want that. So allow your body to completely soften and relax. And breathing deep. Bernie talks about the 3 elements to Yin Yoga. Yin is really, really simple, not necessarily easy, but I do like its simplicity. The first element is finding your edge. So we want to find a space where you feel the stretch, but very gentle. Feel the stretch and don't push past it. The second element is stillness, with 2 exceptions. One exception is when the body gives you more space, take the space, go a little bit deeper, go a little bit further to find your edge again. So we're back to that first element. The second exception to the stillness element is if you've gone too far and you need to come out a little bit. So those are the 2 exceptions to stillness. And the third element is time. So you just wait. You found your edge. You're holding still and you wait. And the next thing you know, it's time to come out. Do be cautious when you come out. We'll start to come out now. I like to gently, carefully scoop my belly in and then allow your arms to help you come up and out of this posture. We'll keep the legs exactly where they are and we'll just change sides. So walk your hands over towards the left leg. And then same thing again, walk them forward. We'll get our timer started. Here we go. So we are finding our edge. You might notice one side is more flexible than the other. Doesn't matter. It evens out over time. It's really interesting. And we find that stillness. Remember your 2 exceptions to stillness throughout your practice. And then we wait. Closing the eyes. Breathing easy. Lots of oxygen to those muscles. Checking in that you're breathing and softening, and that you found your edge. So always working with our edge. Sometimes the edge moves and we're allowed to take more space, not taking any space unless your body gives you that go ahead. Last few deep breaths here. Gently, slowly, slowly scooping the belly in. Slowly, slowly walking the hands back to center. Our last variation of straddle is center. So now we get to walk the hands forward. I like to use a blanket because it helps me reach forward. And then if your floor is cold, you can have a cushion beneath you. We'll get our timer started. So finding your edge, close the eyes. Trying to hold still. checking in. Be sure you still got your edge. You haven't pushed past it, but you are moving with the stretch if the body's allowed you some more space. Last few deep breaths here. Slowly, slowly, slowly start to come up. And you may need to even help your legs back to our sort of starting position here with the feet forward, a couple little knee taps. Sometimes the legs feel a little bit like jello after. That's totally normal. And then once again, heading into our windshield wipers, just getting a little circulation going into the hips. So once again, one knee lowers down towards the floor as it's rotating just in the hip socket, not in the knee. Other side. Once more, first side. Another side. And come on. From here, we'll make our way all the way to child's pose, so long as that's okay on your knees. If not, just a cross-legged seated position. Otherwise, we're in a kneeling position with the big toes together, leaning back onto the feet, so hips back onto the feet, and place the forehead onto the floor. So if this does not work, you can use your block, maybe two of them, and place the forehead on the block. Alternatively, if the legs don't want to stay together, the knees, you can always step them apart. That gives the person a little bit more space, and it's a little bit easier and nicer. So we want it to feel nice. Arms can either be forward, or if it feels better, have them along your sides, palms facing up. Whatever feels best for you. Let's take a moment to settle in and really relax there. And slowly come on out. We'll head onto our bellies for this next one. Little wardrobe adjust. So onto our bellies, heading into a posture called Sphinx pose. I'm going to turn a little bit this way so I can see you better, or so you can see me, I suppose. Lifting up onto the forearms. This is it. This is our Sphinx posture. So I'll go ahead and flip our timer. This is all we're doing, hanging out here. So this one is a little bit of a strength posture for the arms. and everything else is relaxing. So we're trying not to hinge right at the low back, but rather allow the entire back to curve. The way we do that is think about the sternum reaching almost forward as the, almost lifting up and forward as the back bends. And if you're like, I don't know how you do, I don't know what you're talking about, don't worry about it. Just up on the forearms, feel a nice stretch in the back. The other thing to know about stretching the back is that I remember myself feeling like if I feel anything in the low back, it's bad for me. Feeling any stretch or achiness in the low back must be bad, especially since in the West, low back pain is so common. But if you have a healthy spine, that's not true at all. Feeling a stretch in the low back is great. Feeling a dull ache in the low back means you're working, and that's totally okay in a yoga practice. Sharp pain is never okay. So in that case, you would need to come out a bit. Maybe this is too much of a stretch. If that's the case, walk the arms forward a bit more to make the stretch a little bit less intense. Otherwise, the elbows are right beneath the shoulders. And once again, sternum reaching forward. You can even close the eyes. Last few moments here. See if you can sink the heart downward just a little bit more. To come out, we'll stack the hands one on top of the other. Place your right cheek on the hands and then draw your left knee on the floor towards the left elbow. And it releases the spine quite nicely. Just a few moments. And returning back to our belly, we'll prepare for seal. So if Sphinx pose was a big stretch for you, just repeat this one, okay? So again, if this is a good stretch for you, just repeat that one. If you're like, oh, I'd like to go a bit further, then what we do is we head into seal. So that's where we press up onto the hands. Now this one is a bit of a choose your own adventure. So if it's too much of a stretch in seal, but not enough in Sphinx, you can walk the hands forward. You can notice that the back arches less. Conversely, if you're a little bit more flexible, you can bring the hands closer to you. Okay, so this one is a little bit more challenging for the arms. You can feel the arm muscles working, so we need strength in the arms, and then the back melts. Try to soften through the back. The cool thing about stretching the back is that, just so many things. It stretches the intercostal muscles. Those are the muscles between your ribs. It's really challenging. There's no like stretch at the gym that I've heard of that stretches the muscles or targets the muscles between the ribs. Why is this important? It makes breathing easier. If you can stretch and expand the ribs more, then your lungs can expand more, which makes breathing easier. You might notice, however, that it's a little bit more challenging to breathe in this position, and that's because this is pressing the diaphragm. So it's a bit of a, I don't want to say the word struggle. It's more challenging to breathe in a good way. We're toning the diaphragm, which really greatly assists us in breathing. So this is a great posture to allow breathing to become easier. The other thing that we're stretching is the ligament. There's a ligament that runs the full length of the spine on the front part of the spine, called the anterior, meaning forward, longitudinal ligament. So ligaments are kind of like elastic bands that are tough. They don't stretch like muscles do. It's like an elastic band that's thicker and doubled up. If you can imagine a thick, wide band of elastic that's thick both directions, it's not going to stretch as much. And ligaments like to stretch slowly over time, like years. We're already done. Let's slowly come on out. So the way we stretch ligaments is to hold for longer and move slower. Now, for this posture, same thing again, stack the hands, and then it's the other knee that lifts up towards the elbow and other cheek. So right knee lifts up, left cheek. I'm looking away from you, I'm sorry, but you're looking away as well. So just take a few moments. If you need a little bit longer here, feel free. Sometimes the back feels kind of funny after that stretch because we don't tend to stretch our spines that much without being in a yoga class. Then, heading up and back to a child's pose once again. So toes are together, sitting back onto the heels. You'll notice that feels a nice stretch after we bent the opposite way. So whatever your child's pose is, remember your positioning. If you don't remember, just give it a go now and adjust as necessary. So you may wish to have your knees slightly further apart, or maybe your hands are along your sides. That feels nicer. Maybe your forehead's on a block. And slowly come on out. From here, we'll flip over onto our backs, preparing for happy baby pose. We'll hold this one for 3 minutes as well. So this one's more of a passive stretch than we do in Hatha Yoga. We do this pose quite often in Hatha Yoga. It's a great counter stretch for the back bending. So laying back, if you have placed your ponytail right at the back of your head, you may wish to remove that now. And then for this one, plug the knees in, and then we clasp onto the outer edges of the feet for this one. And if you can't reach your feet, find your shins, whatever you can find. And try to have the soles of the feet facing the ceiling. So whether you have a hold of the feet or whether it's the shins, instead of drawing the feet down so that the knees are drawing down towards the floor, think of just gravity working. So I'm not pulling so much like I might do in a hatha class. I would draw those knees down. But now I just want to let gravity work. So it won't go as far, perhaps. But just let gravity do its thing. Closing the eyes and holding, finding stillness. One thing that's kind of fun, if you can feel your tummy gurgling like I can, that means you are relaxed. And this is a good thing. Your body is allowing itself to be in rest and digest. Often in life, we have way too much cortisol and adrenaline rushing through us as we rush about our daily activities and things. So it's nice if you can feel at peace enough to feel the tummy gurgling. So see if you can do that if you haven't noticed already. Close the eyes and really soften and relax in the tummy. These are just our last few moments here. And slowly, slowly release. Hugging the knees in. Maybe in a little rock from side to side. From here, we'll head into a twist, a reclined twist. So from here, you have some options. There's quite a few different ways we can twist. What we'll do is we'll send our knee or knees over to the left. So if you know yin and you know what twist you're going into, you can go ahead and get situated now. If you're brand new to yoga, I recommend two knees, a two knee twist, arms in T, and just allow your knees to move over towards a block. You can even rest them on a block and then hold here. A little bit greater of a stretch is one knee bent, so right knee hugs in, and send the knee over to a block this way. You have to do the lift and scooch though when you start to do actually any of the twists, even a two-legged. Just scooch the hips over a little bit to the right and then allow the knees or knee to shift over to the left. This allows your spine to be in complete alignment as the hips move. The most challenging twist, which is my favorite, is twisted roots. So again, shift the hips over to the right, cross the legs right over one another, and then allow the hips to, whoopsie daisies. Yes, I just said whoopsie daisies. Over to the left. In all three variations, it's really important to have the right shoulder pinned down to the floor. It might want to come up. If it keeps floating up and it feels like there's nothing you can do, even if you have the knee propped up on a block, then place a blanket beneath the shoulder so that your shoulder is secured to something. The reason for that, there's two reasons. One is if your shoulder is hanging in space, then so might your arm be. And the shoulder is it's a relatively unstable joint just by nature. It's not as secure of a ball and joint situation like your hip is. So it causes leverage is sort of the short, oversimplified answer to that for your shoulder. It can cause shoulder injury. We don't want that. Yoga is great, but it's not magic. You can hurt yourself if you're not doing it properly. So that's why it's really important to do things properly. The other reason is that you can even see if you are securely shoulder to floor, you can see the twist is in the mid back. Right here, my back is twisting. That's the majority of the twist right here. If I lift my shoulder up, my knees plummet to the earth, and I've just changed the twist to the lumbar spine, which we don't need to stretch the lumbar spine more than we already can in a rotational plane of, there's words I'm looking for, plane basically, in a side-to-side motion. Yoga makes me lose English. So we want the twist to be like a cloth. If you think about wringing out a cloth, If you can visualize that, the majority of the twist is right in the center of the cloth, and it's less of a twist on either end. So for our body, that would be less twist in the low back and less twist on the neck. So not craning the neck either, but a little bit of looking over to the right as our knees move over to the left, with the majority of that twist in the mid-back, the thoracic spine, or T-spine. And I've almost yammered away at you about twists for the full 3 minutes. Almost done. To come out, it's really important to come out with the same integrity as we move into a posture. So draw the belly in first, belly pulls in, that secures the low back. Then press the low back into the floor. So feel like it's the back pressing into the floor, low back pressing into the floor, and the legs just sort of follow. Then we unravel and square everything up, and between sides, hug those knees into your chest. Maybe a little bit of a rock side to side. And then we'll prepare for the other side. I'll get our timer started. Remember the variation you did on the first side, and also remember to shift those hips over to the left as we send the knees over to the right. Pinning this time the left shoulder onto the floor, and then looking over to the left. I'm going to bring my timer over to the left side of me. You don't need to see the timer. I won't yammer away at you this time. I'll give you some peace and quiet. So softening and melting. Left shoulder pressing down. And to come out, scoop the belly in. And press the low back into the floor, coming out really, 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 really slow. Give the spine a second. And then we'll unravel and unwind. Squaring everything up. And then hug the knees into your chest. And rock side to side. spending a little bit of extra time in this Apanasana after the twist. This is a really good counter stretch for your twist. You can even do a little yang-like motion by hugging and squeezing the knees in towards you. I feel a stretch in the hips when I do this. I don't know if you can too. It really releases the low back. And then from here, slowly release. And we'll prepare for Shavasana. So Shavasana, if you're new to yoga, is our final resting pose, and it's similar to our opening meditation, but it's laying down. So all we do is lay down. If your back needs a bit of extra support today after your practice, feel free to keep the knees bent with the feet on the floor and step the feet fairly wide apart, wider than hips width, and then let the knees tip in towards each other. This way you don't need to grip or hold on using muscles while we're trying to relax. If everything feels okay, extending the legs, and then in either leg position, extend the arms. I like to even tuck the shoulder blades beneath. Palms are facing up so we have that nice openness, perfect posture while we're relaxing. Palms are facing up. And then close the eyes. Here, again, we don't have to think about anything at all. It's an opportunity. Really, when you think about it, how often do you not have to think about anything at all? While we're here, softening through everything. So allow yourself to feel completely heavy. Softening through the toes and the ankles. Softening through the knees. Releasing through the hips. And all the way down the legs. Softening through the belly. And the full length of the back. Allowing yourself to feel heavy into the floor. Really let the floor support you. And softening especially through the neck and the shoulders. And all the way down the arms. Letting the fingers softly curl. And softening through the face. Through the forehead. Softening the jaw. And the cheekbones. Softening around the eyes. And even the muscle between the eyes. Just letting it all go. And starting to come back. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. And gently roll your head from side to side. Then reaching your arms above head on the floor, give yourself a big stretch, feeling totally refreshed, like you're waking up first thing in the morning. Then one at a time, bend your knees in and gently roll over to the right side and pause there for a few moments, allowing yourself to come back nice and slowly. Taking those moments on that right side. It's the best way to actually wake up every morning as well, the nicest on your body. Then use your arms to press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seated position, taking all the time you need. And when you arrive, palms facing up on the knees, inhale, sitting up tall, and exhale, softly close the eyes. I'll take a few moments for a final meditation as well. Just a few moments of stillness to start. Noticing how you feel. Does it feel different than your first meditation of today's class? And taking the next few moments to remember and come back to your intention for today's practice. Allowing your practice to come full circle, knowing that you're one step closer to your intention for today's practice. And take a moment to silently thank yourself for showing up to your practice today, knowing that it's taking care of you and helping you reach your goals of getting healthier, stronger, more flexible, so many benefits. Just taking that moment to thank yourself. How often do we actually thank ourselves for taking care of ourselves? And finally, taking a moment or two to thank others silently in our mind's eye. So many people help us every day. Taking a moment to acknowledge all of their help and assistance, maybe guidance. Some help us a little, some help us a lot. Some people help us and we don't even know them. And slowly open the eyes. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for our beautiful yin practice, an easy beginner's flow with 3-minute holds, and an extra thank you to Bernie Clark for providing today's sequence. I'll see you next time. Have a really good rest of your day. Namaste.